Hello and welcome to EBA Day TV, and today I'm speaking to John Ball of Deutsche Bank. Now John, Deutsche Bank is a huge European player, and it's of course also a global player. What are you hearing from your clients? Is there any sort of geographical difference in some of their needs?
I think actually it's remarkable that there aren't too many geographical differences. When I talk to clients today, they're obviously very concerned again about what is going on from a risk point of view. I think we had a bit of a lull there at the start of the year. Now suddenly risk is back on the table again, particularly with all that's going on in Europe at the moment. So that clearly dominates a lot of discussions. It also impacts the way that clients think in terms of their investment spend. Investment spend is very constrained at the moment, clearly for everybody. And as a result, I think banks are looking for partnerships increasingly. They are starting to discuss things now that probably weren't on the table during the good times. So, transaction banking does well at times like this. It's almost sort of the opposite of what you might think. Suddenly things are back in play that weren't there a while ago. So we've been engaged with a lot of clients around the world on fairly detailed discussions about applications that we couldn't probably engage in a little while ago. I think there's some geographical colour to it as well, obviously. If you were in Asia, I think China would be very high on everyone's agenda, quite naturally, because obviously of its proximity and a lot more trade flows within Asia. A lot of concern about what is going on there, both politically and economically. But generally, to go back to your original question, I think that there's probably a lot more uniformity around concerns than you would perhaps expect.
So if there's this uniformity of concern, how can banks differentiate themselves?
I think we look at it from the point of view, I think that having robust technology is almost a given. Having a technology that is flexible, that is innovative, that provides real value to clients in terms of the applications that we can build, that's a different animal altogether. So we certainly differentiate where that's concerned. I think the biggest differentiator, frankly, though, is people. All right, people make the biggest difference in this business. People are obviously incredibly important to us in terms of how we're perceived by our clients. And I think it's very important that those people build a very strong trust and a very strong bond so that they reach that trusted advisor status. And it doesn't matter what aspect of the business. It doesn't matter whether you're in sales or whether you're in customer service or whether you're in operations. You all have touch points with the client. And you're all equally important in terms of how the client perceives Deutsche Bank. So for me, that's absolutely critical. That's how we differentiate ourselves.
So, we can talk about what's going on in Europe and regulations for a long time. But, I wanted to talk with you a bit about some structural changes that have gone on at Deutsche Bank. Can you give us a bit more detail on that?
Well, let me talk a little bit about what's going on in my space, which is the FI cash management space, and particularly across the business that we do in the transaction bank with FIs. We previously operated through distinct product verticals. So we had a cash management vertical, a trade vertical, a custody vertical, ADRs, GDRs. And those businesses did very, very well in their own right. But what we didn't do very successfully was to talk across the businesses. And therefore, we missed a lot of opportunities, I think, in the process. So what we've done in the last 4 or 5 months is that we've taken each of those verticals, we've retained the vertical, but we've split it into 2 components. One component is the sales piece, which we've FI sales for each of those verticals. And the second piece is the product piece. So in the sales piece, responsibility for the revenue line and the client. And in the product piece, responsibility for all the product management and the bottom line. And then what we're trying to do is to basically make each of those sales organizations communicate much more successfully across the client base. And I think that's very important because in the past, we could probably box what a client wanted very neatly into one of those product verticals. Increasingly, as the requirements become more complex, you need to join the dots. And we hope that as a result of doing this, we'll have a single point of contact within that FI sales organization, which will then be able to lead across all the different product suite within Deutsche Bank. So we think that's going to be our route to success in terms of how we more effectively cross-sell.